Ammo prices are finally breaking in favor of shooters, and some cartridges have fallen harder than a steel silhouette at 300 yards. From pocket-sized fireballs to elk-dropping magnums, the numbers on the shelf tags have nosedived across the board. Which calibers just flipped from "too rich for my blood" to "fill the cart right now"? In this video, we'll talk about the top 10 calibers that are cheaper now, why the drops happened, and what guns benefit most. We'll start with the .454 Castle, a bear-stopping wheel gun round that lost nearly $3 per cylinder, cruise through the rim-cracking 30-30 that's back to pre-pandemic cost, and land on the flashy 22 TCM that now beats bulk 223 in price. We'll look at real street numbers, see how far each round has fallen on the charts, and get quick swaps, like using budget .338 Federal instead of bruising .338 Win Mag, or taking 24-gauge shells dove hunting for half the price of 28-gauge. By the end, you'll know which calibers keep your wallet fat, your mags full, and your grin wide when range day rolls around. Revolver hunters looking for genuine big-game authority have long gravitated to Dick Castle's 58-year-old brainchild. It propels a 300-grain hard-cast slug past the 1,200 feet per second mark, which explains why Alaskan guides holster it when brownies decide to inspect camp. A year ago, the least expensive factory load hovered around $1.20 a pop, with spikes to $1.48 whenever boutique makers paused production. This spring, a fresh batch hit distributors, and the price plunged to $1.12, the lowest figure ever logged on the Black Basin tracker, and almost 14 cents beneath the 3-year mean. That drop matters because a full cylinder costs roughly $6 instead of $9, and a weekend sight-in session no longer feels like you're burning bar tabs in the forcing cone. Shooters who normally settle for .44 Magnum now have a genuine reason to step up without selling a kidney. And those pondering the spendier .460 S&W can test Castle waters for about half the tariff. It still hits harder than a 12-inch .45-70 government out of a revolver barrel company BFR, yet recoil stays manageable in a modern 5-shot Ruger Super Redhawk. Reloading brass has also slipped to 42 cents, so the price contraction isn't limited to factory cartons. If you ever dreamt of taking whitetails with a wheel gun that doubles as trail insurance, this window feels tailor-made. The cartridge that once dueled 30-30 in deer camps from Maine to Michigan was fading into obscurity until surplus collectors rekindled interest. Factory ammo sat near $2.60 a round for most of last season, largely because the handful of companies still loading it refused to risk large runs. February's inventory dump flipped the script, and street costs skidded to $2, about 15% below last month and close to half what nostalgia hunters were paying during the pandemic shortage. Unlike 30-30, 303 Savage Brass accepts bullets of .308 diameter, so handloaders can tap the vast .308 component pool and trim overall cost even further. The fresh price bracket makes it a viable substitute for expensive boutique lever-action rounds such as .348 Winchester, and performance ties neatly with .300 Savage out to 200 yards. Deer hunters running inherited. Model 1899s can finally zero without rationing cartridges, and cowboy action competitors who favor unique smoke wagons get an affordable conversation piece. Historical pricing charts show multi-year stability near 226, meaning the current dip is abnormal and likely brief. If a Savage 99 lives in your safe, now is the moment to feed it before numbers creep back toward vintage status pricing. Scattergun aficionados have watched tiny shot columns drain colossal wallets for too long. A year back, generic 2.5-inch game loads averaged 68 cents. Dedicated home defense discs regularly crested $1. Continuous production shifts at the big 3 shot shell makers pushed quantities onto retailers in January, and competition drove the price floor to an unprecedented 38 cents. Charts across 2 calendar years reveal a steady downward staircase from 75 cents, and today's figure sits a full third under the 12-month mean. Suddenly, the lightweight bore looks reasonable for backyard skeet leagues, bunny seasons, and even youth turkey hunts when paired with tungsten supershot. Ballistically, the cartridge trails 28-gauge by a hair, yet burns about 28% less powder, so reloaders can drop operating costs to 20-gauge territory. Budget-conscious gardeners who keep a single shot behind the door for copperhead duty finally gain parity with 22 LR shot shells on a per-round basis, except the .410 actually patterns. Anyone tempted by 350 Legend or 357 maximum slug conversions for minimum recoil deer hunting can now reconsider, because 410 Foster slugs deliver comparable energy inside 70 yards while costing half as much as last Christmas. The boar, once dismissed as boutique, just joined the bargain shelf. Riflemen chasing elk power in a short-action package treat 338 Federal like an insider secret. Federal launched it in 2006, promising .30-06 case length with .33 caliber authority, but limited rifle availability kept shelf prices steep, typically $240 a round. March saw Federal's Anoka plant complete an overrun destined for a canceled European order, and distributors blew excess cases out the door at $1.95. Historical data show the cartridge rarely dipped below $225, so this 18% cut is unprecedented. Compared with 338.06 A square, it runs 35 cents cheaper and feeds from any AR-10 pattern magazine without modification, giving hog hunters a powerful reason to step up. In recoil, it handily beats the shoulder thump of 338 Win Mag while matching its 250-yard energy, positioning it as a practical swap for 35 Wheelin', or even the trendy 8.6 Blackout when range exceeds 2 football fields. Handloaders will appreciate that premium 185 grain projectiles suddenly pencil out near the cost of common 308 hunting loads. If a lightweight backcountry carbine in bear country has been living only in your wish list, the ammo cost barrier just got bulldozed. America's favorite deer cartridge spent the pandemic moonlighting as a luxury good. Secondary market listings touched $3 each while shelves sat bare. The rebound started last summer, and by January, many retailers had pallets again. Persistent overstock just nudged factory loads to 71 cents, a number unseen since 2017 and a full 21% down from the 12-month average of 90 cents. 48% separate today's price from the 4-year mean of $1.37, a gulf wider than the Grand Canyon for anyone feeding multiple lever guns. Velocity purists often migrate to 6.5 Creedmoor for flat shooting. Yet inside 200 yards, a 170-grain round-nose 30-30 retains energy comparable to that Darling's 140-grain load and costs about half as much in this new market. Modern poly-tipped flex-tip bullets also give 30-30 a trajectory that steals thunder from 300 Blackout supersonic loads while carrying twice the punch on impact. Vintage saddle rifles can return to the woods without mortgaging bourbon money, and preppers who crave brass that can be resized on a Lee hand press now have incentive to buy by the case instead of by the box. When Winchester updated the classic 3855 to higher pressures in the 70s, brush hunters rejoiced, then grumbled as ammo faded and prices climbed. For years, you had to commit nearly $3 per trigger press. February's production run from Buffalo Bore and HSM changed that landscape. Street price slipped to $1.99, down 22% from the long-term $264 median. The round hits harder than .45-70 at close range, yet recoils less than a 3-inch 12-gauge slug, filling an appealing niche for hog drives or black bear over bait. With the new price, it begins to rival 350 Legend in per-round expense while surpassing it by over 500 foot-pounds of energy at 50 yards. Data going back 5 years show only gradual drops before this cliff, signaling a temporary glut. Lever action fans who crave more wallop than 30-30 or 35 Remington can now step into big bore territory without entering big bank territory. Cast bullet reloaders also find brass plentiful for the first time since 2010, slashing component cost and making the caliber practical for steel plate league nights. Most shooters have never handled a 24-gauge shell, which sits dead center between the 20 and 28 in bore size, yet offers tight patterns and controllable recoil. RST and a handful of Italian firms produced limited runs for classic doubles, keeping average cost near 82 cents. An unexpected European shipment landed stateside this spring, and retailers cleared pallets at 41 cents, chopping the price by nearly half and marking the lowest figure ever captured on domestic trackers. In terms of payload and recoil, it replaces 28-gauge skeet loads while cutting cost 25%, and for light upland work, it equals a mild 20-gauge field load but weighs less on the shoulder. Vintage Stevens 107s and Husqvarna hammer guns no longer need to remain curios. Shooters can finally afford Clay's practice without rationing ammo. Reload data for the hull matches common 20-gauge wads and powders. simplifying the component chase. Anyone building a survival kit around a Valmet combination gun can pocket extra shells without the weight penalty of 20-gauge brass, and the current pricing sweetens that equation further. Long-range experimenters often treat ammunition like scientific grant money, scarce, precious, and consumed sparingly. For years, 416. Barrett sat at a steady 1270 per round, barely budging because only a handful of facilities can meter its slow magnum powders and form its proprietary brass. Early May brought clearance cases from an overproduced military training lot, and the sticker plunged to $880. That reduction amounts to nearly $3.50 every time the firing pin drops. A surreal sensation when your single-digit round count day suddenly costs what 150 BMG API used to. The Barrett load flattens trajectory compared with 50 BMG, while generating about two-thirds the recoil, and at this new price, it almost matches premium .338 La Pure rounds while exceeding their retained velocity past a mile. Precision competitors who flirted with .375 CHATAC or .408 CHATAC now have a budget-friendly reason to pick the Barrett instead. Historical data reveal decade-long monotony within a narrow 10-cent band. So this sale is less a trend than a fleeting meteor shower. Stockpiling match lots today might be the only way to shoot 2,000-yard steel without selling another optic next year. Roy Weatherbe engineered his 7mm rocket in 1945 with mountains and elk in mind, and that pedigree has always commanded premium coin. The long-established floor hovered at $421, give or take a dime. A sharp production surplus merged with lagging late-season demand, dragging price to $275, almost $1.50 savings each time the bolt closes. Charts covering 5 years show the cartridge behaving like a metronome, minor wobbles around $420, then this spring's plunge off a cliff. Ballistically, it eclipses 7mm rem mag by a couple hundred feet per second and outclasses 6.5 PRC for energy just shy of 600 yards. In cost per foot-pound, the newly discounted Weatherbe now edges its Remington cousin and even challenges non-Magnum 7mm .08 hunting loads. Hunters chasing mountain mule deer or Himalayan tahr can now train with 50-round case lots instead of single digits. Reloading remains viable thanks to plentiful 7mm projectiles, and once-fired brass is suddenly cheaper than unfired 300 Win Mag cases. If a Mark V and 7mm W-Buy has been whispering from the gun shop rack, that voice just got louder. Curiosity around .22 TCM usually begins with the first muzzle flash, an orange fireball paired with a noise that rattles ceiling tiles, yet pushes recoil akin to a soft 9mm. For years, that entertainment cost close to 36 cents a shot, already low for centerfire but still high for plinking. A flood of Philippine-made boxes hit American wholesalers in April, slicing the tag to 20 cents, the biggest single-month percentage dive in this roundup at nearly 45%. Historical logs show prices floating between 25 and 30 cents since launch, making today a full nickel cheaper than the cartridge's 2012 debut. Trajectory beats .22 Magnum from both pistol and carbine barrels and treads on the heels of 5.7 by .28, while costing 1/4 as much as American Eagle 5.7. Handloaders can reuse brass 5 or 6 times and still spend less per cycle than bulk .223 Remington. For home defense duty, the 40-grain jacketed hollow point fragments fast, reducing over-penetration concerns that shadow 9mm or .357 SIG, yet gel blocks prove it carves deeper than any .22 mag pistol. Carbines, such as the Rock Island MAPP rifle group under 2 inches at 100 yards, so the round encroaches on .22 Hornet varmint territory while retaining cheap-to-feed status. If you've been searching for a caliber that merges low recoil, dramatic spectacle, and ballistic punch, .22 TCM just removed price from the list of excuses.